I was never the golden child. That title, heavy with expectation and shimmering with undeserved praise, belonged solely to my brother Alistair. From the moment he drew his first breath, a perfect miniature of our father, he was destined for greatness, or so everyone seemed to believe. I, on the other hand, was simply there, a quiet observer in the dazzling spectacle of Alistair's life. Our parents, bless their hearts, tried their best to be fair. They showered us with love, provided us with opportunities, and instilled in us the values they held dear: honesty, integrity, and the importance of family. But even their best efforts couldn't mask the subtle, almost imperceptible favoritism that clung to Alistair like a second skin. He excelled at everything he attempted, effortlessly charming teachers, coaches, and potential employers alike. I, with my quiet demeanor and my tendency to overthink, often faded into the background, content to let Alistair bask in the spotlight. Growing up, I learned to accept my role. I became the steady, reliable one, the one who listened without interrupting, the one who offered support without seeking recognition. I was Alistair's confidant, his sounding board, his shadow. And in a way, I was okay with that. I loved my brother, despite the inherent imbalance in our relationship. I admired his confidence, his charisma, his ability to navigate the world with such ease. Then, tragedy struck. Our parents, vibrant and full of life, were taken from us in a senseless car accident. The world tilted on its axis, and I felt a gaping hole open in my chest, a void that threatened to swallow me whole. Alistair, for once, seemed lost, his usual bravado replaced by a stunned silence. In the days and weeks that followed, we were surrounded by family and friends, all offering their condolences and support. The house, once filled with laughter and warmth, became a somber space, heavy with grief. Amidst the chaos and the sorrow, Alistair stepped up, taking charge of the funeral arrangements, coordinating with the lawyers, and managing the endless stream of visitors. He was, as always, the picture of composure and strength. It was during this time, in the hushed whispers and furtive glances, that I began to notice a subtle shift in Alistair's behavior. He seemed different, more assertive, more calculating. He held court in the living room, regaling relatives with stories of our parents, carefully crafting a narrative that painted him as the sole inheritor of their legacy. He started, subtly hinting at the contents of the will, suggesting that our parents had entrusted him with everything, confident in his ability to manage their estate. He spoke of his plans for the family business, outlining his vision for the future, a future that seemingly excluded me entirely. At first, I dismissed it as grief-talking. Alistair was under immense pressure, dealing with the loss of our parents while simultaneously managing their affairs. But as the days passed, his pronouncements became more frequent, more emphatic. He began to treat the house as if it were already his, rearranging furniture, making plans for renovations, and even discussing the possibility of selling it. I found myself growing increasingly uneasy. Something felt wrong, deeply wrong. I knew our parents. They were fair and just, and I couldn't imagine them leaving me out of their will entirely. But I also knew Alistair. He was persuasive and charismatic, and he had a way of getting people to believe whatever he wanted them to believe. I confronted him one evening, after everyone had left. "Alistair," I said, my voice trembling slightly, "what's going on? Why are you telling everyone that you inherited everything?" He looked at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of pity and annoyance. "Don't be naive, Your Name," he said, his voice condescending. "You know how much they relied on me. They trusted me to take care of everything. It's only natural that they would leave me in charge." "But what about me?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Don't I get anything?" He sighed, as if I were being deliberately difficult. "Of course, you'll get something," he said, patting my hand dismissively. "A token, a gesture of goodwill. But let's be realistic. Your Name, you're not exactly equipped to handle a large inheritance. It's better this way. Trust me." I stared at him, stunned. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He was talking to me as if I were a child, incapable of managing my own affairs. He was dismissing my feelings, invalidating my grief, and essentially writing me out of our family's history. "That's not fair, Alistair," I said, my voice rising in anger. That's not what our parents would have wanted. He shrugged, his face impassive. Maybe not, he said. But they're not here anymore, are they? And I am. And I'm going to do what I think is best. I knew then that I was alone. Alistair had already made up his mind, and nothing I said or did was going to change it. He had convinced himself, and everyone else, that he was entitled to everything, and he wasn't about to let me stand in his way. I retreated into myself, withdrawing from the constant stream of visitors and the endless discussions about the will. I spent my days wandering through the house, reliving memories of our parents, trying to find some solace in the familiar surroundings. I felt like a ghost, haunting the edges of my own life, powerless to change the course of events. The days leading up to the official reading of the will were excruciating. Alistair continued to act as if everything was settled, making plans for the future, secure in his belief that he had everything under control. I, on the other hand, was consumed by anxiety and dread. I knew that he was lying, but I had no proof. I had no way of knowing what our parents had actually written in their will. I considered confronting him again, but I knew it would be futile. He was too far gone, too convinced of his own righteousness. I even considered contacting the lawyers myself, but I hesitated. I didn't want to cause a scene, to create a rift in our family that could never be healed. So, I remained silent. I watched as Alistair orchestrated his deception, manipulating our relatives and friends into believing his version of the truth. I listened as he spoke of his plans for the future, a future that excluded me entirely, and I waited, my heart heavy with a mixture of sadness, anger, and a growing sense of determination. The day of the will reading arrived, cold and gray, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. The lawyer, a stern-faced woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, sat at the head of the long mahogany table, surrounded by our relatives and a few close friends. Alistair sat beside me, radiating an aura of confidence and self-assurance. He caught my eye and gave me a small, patronizing smile. I looked away, my stomach churning. The lawyer cleared her throat and began to read the will, her voice formal and detached. She recited the usual legal jargon, listing our parents' assets and outlining their wishes for the future. As she spoke, I felt a knot tighten in my chest. I knew that this moment would change everything, that it would either confirm Alistair's lies or expose them for what they were. Finally, she reached the crucial part, the section that outlined the distribution of our parents' estate. She paused, her eyes scanning the room, and then she read the words that would shatter Alistair's carefully constructed facade. To my beloved daughter, your name, I leave our family home, located at address along with all its contents and furnishings. It is my hope that this house will continue to be a place of love and laughter, a sanctuary where she can create her own memories and build her own future. The silence in the room was deafening. All eyes turned to me, their expressions a mixture of surprise, confusion, and disbelief. I sat there, stunned, my mind struggling to process what I had just heard. I had inherited the family home, the house that Alistair had already claimed as his own. Alistair's face, which had been so smug and confident just moments before, was now contorted with shock and anger. His mouth hung open and his eyes darted around the room, as if searching for an explanation, an escape. The lawyer continued reading, outlining the distribution of the rest of the estate. Alistair received a substantial sum of money and control of the family business. But it was clear that the house was the most valuable asset, the one that held the most sentimental value. As the lawyer finished reading, the room erupted in a cacophony of voices. Our relatives began to whisper among themselves, questioning Alistair's claims, casting furtive glances in my direction. Alistair, desperate to regain control of the situation, stood up and began to protest, his voice trembling with rage. "This is a mistake," he shouted, his face flushed red. "There must be some kind of error. Our parents would never have done this." The lawyer, unfazed by his outburst, calmly informed him that the will was valid and legally binding. She explained that our parents had specifically requested that I inherit the house, citing their belief that I would cherish it and preserve its history. Alistair continued to rant and rave, accusing the lawyer of incompetence, accusing me of manipulation, accusing our parents of favoritism. But no one was listening to him anymore. His carefully constructed image of the golden child, the responsible heir, had been shattered. Revealing the bitter, resentful man beneath, I watched him, my heart filled with a mixture of pity and disgust. He had been so consumed by his own ambition, so blinded by his own sense of entitlement, that he had completely lost sight of what was truly important: family, love, and respect. As the room emptied, I remained seated at the table, staring at the document that had changed my life forever. I had inherited the family home, the place where I had grown up, the place where I had shared so many memories with our parents. It was a gift, a responsibility, and a symbol of their unwavering love. Alistair approached me, his face still flushed with anger, his eyes filled with resentment. "How could you do this to me? Your name," he hissed, his voice low and menacing. "How could you let them do this to me?" I looked at him, my gaze steady and unwavering. "I didn't do anything, Alistair," I said, my voice calm and clear. "Our parents made their decision, and it's time you accepted it." He scoffed, his face contorted with rage. "You think you've won, don't you?" he said. "You think you've finally gotten what you always wanted. But you're wrong, your name. This isn't over. I'm not going to let you get away with this." He turned and stormed out of the room, leaving me alone with the weight of my inheritance and the knowledge that my relationship with my brother was irrevocably broken. In the days and weeks that followed, the fallout from the will reading was immense. Alistair cut off all contact with me, refusing to speak to me or acknowledge my existence. He spread rumors about me to our relatives and friends, painting me as a conniving and manipulative schemer who had stolen his rightful inheritance. Many of our relatives took his side, believing his lies and ostracizing me from the family. They accused me of being greedy and selfish, of turning our parents against Alistair, of destroying the family legacy. I was hurt and disappointed by their reactions, but I refused to let their negativity consume me. I knew that I had done nothing wrong, that I had simply been the recipient of our parents' love and generosity. I decided to focus on the future, on preserving the family home and honoring our parents' memory. I spent my days cleaning and repairing the house, filling it with fresh flowers and the scent of baking bread. I invited old friends over for tea and reminisced about the good old days. Slowly but surely, I began to heal. I realized that I didn't need Alistair's approval or the approval of our relatives to be happy. I had the love of our parents, the support of my true friends, and the comfort of the family home. Alistair, on the other hand, continued to spiral downward. He became increasingly isolated and bitter, consumed by his anger and resentment. He mismanaged the family business, making reckless decisions that threatened to bankrupt it. He alienated his friends and alienated his wife, driving them away with his constant negativity. His perfect image, the image that he had cultivated for so long, was completely shattered. He was no longer the golden child, the successful businessman, the charming friend. He was simply a broken man, consumed by his own self-pity. I watched his downfall with a heavy heart. I never wanted things to end this way. I loved my brother, despite his flaws, and I longed for the days when we were close, when we supported each other, when we were a family. But I knew that those days were gone forever. Alistair had made his choices, and he was now living with the consequences. I could only hope that one day he would find a way to forgive me, to forgive our parents, and to forgive himself. In the meantime, I would continue to live my life, to cherish the family home and to honor the memory of our parents. I would build my own future, a future filled with love, laughter, and happiness. And I would always remember the lessons that I had learned from this experience, the importance of honesty, the value of integrity, and the enduring power of family. The house, once a symbol of division and conflict, became a sanctuary, a place of healing and renewal. It was a reminder that even in the face of tragedy and betrayal, love can endure and hope can prevail. And it was a testament to the enduring bond between a daughter and her parents, a bond that could never be broken, not even by death.